I never thought moving into a quiet, tree-lined neighborhood would turn my life into a chess match. My name is Alex, and I'm the kind of person who likes things simple. Mow the lawn, wave to the neighbors, pay the bills, and enjoy a little peace after work. That's all I wanted when I bought my first HOA two-story place with a red door and a porch swing. I didn't know that behind the white picket fences and manicured lawns, there was a different kind of wild, the HOA, and at its head, a woman named Brenda Carter. Brenda was the kind of HOA president you hear about in horror stories. She was always watching, always patrolling, always ready with a clipboard and a new rule. She wore the same khaki shorts and pastel polo shirt every day, and her smile never quite reached her eyes. The first time I met her, she was measuring the distance between my trash can and the curb with a tape measure. "Welcome to the neighborhood," she said, not looking up. "We take pride in our standards here." At first, I tried to stay out of her way, followed the rules, even the weird ones. No wind chimes, no garden gnomes, no basketball hoops left out overnight. I trimmed my hedges, painted my mailbox, and even bought the approved shade of mulch. But it didn't matter. Brenda always found something. A leaf in the gutter, a garden hose not perfectly coiled. My grass was too long by half an inch. I got warning letters, fines, and even a photo of my car parked at a slight angle in my own driveway. It was annoying, but I shrugged it off. I figured she'd get bored and move on. But then, things got personal. It started with the mailbox. One morning, I found a bright orange violation notice taped to it. Mailbox not in compliance with HOA standards. Must be replaced within 48 hours. I checked the rules. My mailbox was fine. It was the same as everyone else's. When I asked Brenda about it, she just smiled and said, "Rules are rules, Alex. You wouldn't want to set a bad example, would you?" I replaced the mailbox. The next week, it was my porch light. Oh, the bulb. Too bright. Must use HOA-approved wattage. Changed the bulb. Then it was my fence. Paint is chipping. Must repaint within 72 hours. I repainted. No matter what I did, it was never enough. The letters kept coming. The fines kept piling. And Brenda's smile got wider. My friends started joking that I was living in a sitcom. "You've got your own neighborhood villain," they laughed. But it didn't feel funny. It felt like I was being watched, judged, and punished for things that didn't matter. I started to dread coming home, wondering what new violation I'd find taped to my door. One evening, after a long day at work, I pulled into my driveway and saw Brenda standing on my lawn, clipboard in hand, just taking pictures of my house. I got out of the car and tried to keep my voice calm. "Is there a problem, Brenda?" She didn't look up from her clipboard. "It's just routine inspection, Alex. You know how it is. We all have to do our part." I clenched my jaw. "I fixed everything you asked." "What now?" She finally looked at me, her eyes cold. "You have a weed in your flower bed? Your recycling bin was visible from the street for more than 10 minutes after pickup? That's 2 violations." I stared at her, trying to keep my temper in check. "Are you serious?" She smiled. That same, tight, joyless smile. Rules are rules. If you can't follow them, maybe this isn't the right neighborhood for you. That night, I sat on my porch, staring at the violation notice in my hand. I felt angry, frustrated, and powerless. I thought about moving, but why should I let her win? This was my home. I wasn't going to let a petty tyrant drive me out. I started talking to my neighbors. Turns out, I wasn't the only one. Everyone had a Brenda story. She'll find Mrs. Jenkins for having unapproved flowers in her garden. She wrote up the Smiths for their Halloween decorations. She even threatened to tow the Johnsons' car for being too old. But no one wanted to stand up to her. "Should just make your life harder," they warned. "It's not worth." But I couldn't let it go. I started keeping a log of every violation, every letter, every conversation. I took photos, saved emails, and even recorded a few of our routine inspections on my phone. I wanted to be ready, just in case. Then, one night, things escalated. I was sitting in my living room when I heard a noise outside, where I looked out the window and saw Brenda in my yard shining a flashlight at my house. She was taking pictures again. I grabbed my phone and stepped outside. "Can I help you?" Called, trying to keep my voice steady. She didn't even flinch. It's checking for violations. "Alex, it's my job." At 10 o'clock at night, she shrugged. Some people try to hide things after dark, like to be thorough. I took a picture of her with my phone. "You're trespassing, Brenda. I'd appreciate it if you stayed off my property." She glared at me, her smile gone. "You're making a mistake, Alex. I can make things very difficult for you." I stood my ground. "Not afraid of you." She stared at me for a long moment, then turned and walked away, muttering under her breath. I watched her go, my heart pounding. I knew then that this wasn't just about rules. This was personal. The next morning, I found a new violation. Notice this one for hostile behavior toward HOA officials. I laughed out loud. It was so ridiculous. I almost threw it away. But then I had an idea. Brenda wanted to play games. Maybe it was time I played back. But I wasn't going to fight her with anger or threats. I was going to outsmart her. I was going to give her a taste of her own medicine with a twist she'd never see coming. I spent the rest of that day thinking about how to handle Brenda. I knew I couldn't win by arguing or complaining. She thrived on confrontation, and the HOA rules were vague enough that she could twist them any way she wanted. But if there was one thing I understood, it was how to solve problems creatively. I work in IT, and my job is all about finding loopholes, patching vulnerabilities, and thinking outside the box. If Brenda wanted to play games, I'd play too, but on my terms first. I started researching the HOA's own rules. I read every page of the bylaws, every amendment, every footnote. I highlighted the parts that were contradictory or open to interpretation. I made a list of all the gray areas that Brenda liked to exploit. Then, I started looking for ways to use those same rules to my advantage. If she wanted to catch me on technicalities, I'd give her technicalities, so many, in fact, that she wouldn't know what hit her. But I needed more than just paperwork. I needed a plan that would expose her pettiness without making me look like the bad guy. That's when I remembered something my grandfather used to say. The best way to catch a fox is to let her trap herself. I decided to set a trap, not a physical one, but a social one. I wanted the whole neighborhood to see Brenda for who she really was. I started small. Put up a bird feeder in my backyard, nothing fancy, just a simple wooden box on a pole. The HOA rules said nothing about bird feeders, but I knew Brenda would find a way to complain. Sure enough, 2 days later, I got a notice. Unauthorized wildlife attractant. Please remove immediately. I took it down, but not before snapping a photo and sharing it in the neighborhood group chat. "Anyone else get fined for feeding the birds?" I wrote. The responses poured in. Everyone had a story, and everyone was tired of it. Next, I planted a row of marigolds along my walkway. The HOA guidelines listed approved flowers, but marigolds weren't on the list. I got another notice. Unapproved. Landscaping must remove within 24 hours. I posted that one too. Guess marigolds are a threat to the community now, I joked. More neighbors chimed in, sharing their own ridiculous violations. The group chat started buzzing with frustration and laughter. People were starting to see the pattern, but I wasn't done. I decided to push things a little further. I bought a set of solar-powered garden lights, nothing fancy, just a few small stakes to line my driveway. The rules said outdoor lighting had to be subdued and non-intrusive. Mine were barely brighter than a nightlight. Still, I got a notice. Improper lighting. Let's remove. This time, I posted a video of the lights at night, showing how dim they were. Dangerously. Right? I wrote. The comments exploded. Even the most rule-abiding neighbors started to question what was going on. Through all of this, I kept my tone light and friendly. I never attacked Brenda by name, just shared my experiences and let the evidence speak for itself. I wanted people to laugh, to roll their eyes, to realize how absurd things had gotten. It worked. The neighborhood group chat turned into a support group, a place where people could vent and share their own stories. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't alone, but Brenda wasn't amused. She started showing up at my house, more often, sometimes twice a day. She'd walk around with her clipboard, taking notes and snapping photos. She even started bringing another board member with her, as if she needed a witness. I could feel the tension building. She was losing control, and she didn't like it. One afternoon, I was working in my garage when I heard voices outside. Peeked through the window and saw Brenda and her sidekick, Mrs. Evans, standing in my driveway. They were pointing at my car, my mailbox, my porch. I decided to confront them. "Afternoon, folks," I said, stepping outside. "Can I help you with something?" Brenda didn't look at me. She was too busy scribbling on her clipboard. Mrs. Evans gave me a tight smile. Just conducting a routine inspection. Alex, anything I should know about? I asked, keeping my voice friendly. Brenda finally looked up. We've received several complaints about your property. We take these matters seriously. I nodded. Of course. I'd be happy to address any concerns. Could you be specific? She hesitated, flipping through her notes. Your car was parked facing the wrong direction last night. That's a violation. I smiled. Actually, the rules say cars must be parked in a manner consistent with local ordinances. I checked there's no law against how I parked. She frowned, clearly annoyed. Your mailbox is still not in compliance. I pulled out my phone and showed her a photo of the mailbox, along with the section of the HOA rules that matched it. It's the same model as the one in the guidelines. Mrs. Evans shifted uncomfortably. We'll have to review this, and nodded again. Take your time. If you need any more information, just let me know. They left without another word, but I could tell I'd rattled them. I went back inside, feeling a small surge of satisfaction. For the first time, I felt like I had the upper hand. That night, I got another violation. Notice this one for failure to maintain harmonious relations with HOA officials. I laughed. It was so vague, it was almost funny. A T. But I knew Brenda was getting desperate. She was running out of real reasons to harass me, so she was making things up. That's when I decided it was time for the real prank. Not a childish prank, but a clever, calculated move that would expose Brenda's pettiness for everyone to see. I started planning, making lists, gathering supplies. If she wanted a game, I'd give her one she'd never forget. I spent the next few days quietly preparing. My plan wasn't about revenge, it was about exposure. I wanted to show the entire neighborhood, and maybe even the HOA board, just how far Brenda would go to enforce her own twisted version of community standards. But I also wanted to do it in a way that was completely within the rules. Number: vandalism, no shouting matches, nothing that could be used against me. Just pure, clever mischief. The first step was to set the stage. I started by making my property look absolutely perfect. I mowed the lawn twice, trimmed every hedge, swept the driveway, and even washed the windows until they sparkled. I checked every rule in the HOA handbook and made sure I was in 100% compliance. I even bought a new American flag for the porch, just to be extra patriotic. If Brenda wanted to find a violation, she'd have to invent one. Next, I set up a few decoys. I placed a small decorative rock in my flower bed. Nothing flashy, just a smooth stone with the word welcome painted on it. I knew it wasn't against the rules, but I also knew Brenda would see it as an opportunity. I also put a tiny solar-powered owl on my porch railing. Again, not a violation, but just odd enough to catch her attention. Wanted to see how far she'd go. Then, I installed a new security camera above my garage. It was small and discreet, but it had a wide-angle lens that covered my entire front yard and driveway. I made sure the camera was visible, but not obvious. Ka wanted Brenda to notice it, but not realize it was recording audio as well as video. I set the camera to send alerts to my phone whenever it detected motion. I was ready. The next morning, I left for work a little later than usual. As I pulled out of the driveway, I saw Brenda walking her usual patrol route, clipboard in hand. She paused in front of my house, eyeing the new decorations. I watched from the corner as she scribbled something down, then snapped a few photos. I smiled to myself. The bait was set. That afternoon, I got the expected email. Notice of violation, ornamentation. I almost laughed out loud. Okay. The rock and the owl had done their job. But this time, instead of taking them down, I replied to the email with a polite request for clarification. Could you please specify which section of the HOA rules prohibits decorative rocks or solar-powered ornaments? I attached photos of similar items in other neighbors' yards. It's just for good measure. The next day, I got a reply from Brenda herself. Okay? These items are not in keeping with the aesthetic standards of the community. Please remove them within 24 hours, no rule cited, no specifics, just her opinion. I forwarded the email to the neighborhood group chat, along with the photos. Anyone else have to remove their welcome rocks? I asked. The responses were immediate and supportive. People started posting pictures of their own yard decorations, daring Brenda to come after them too. But I wasn't done. I decided to escalate, just a little. I bought a set of removable window decals, simple seasonal designs like leaves and snowflakes. I put them up on my front windows, making sure they were tasteful and easy to remove. Sure enough, the next day, I got another violation notice: improper window coverings. This time I replied with a copy of the HOA rules, which said nothing about window decals. I asked for clarification again, and once more, I shared the exchange in the group chat. By now, the neighborhood was buzzing. People were starting to realize that Brenda's enforcement was arbitrary and personal. Some neighbors even started putting up their own decorations in solidarity. The group chat turned into a running joke, with people posting photos of the most ridiculous violations they could think of. Someone even put a pink flamingo in their yard, just to see what would happen. But the real prank was still to come. I wanted to catch Brenda in the act on camera, with audio, trying to invent a violation where none existed. So I set up a little test. I placed a small empty flower pot on my porch right next to the door. It was clean, unplanted, and completely harmless. I checked the rules. Nothing about empty pots. Then I waited. It didn't take long. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a motion alert from the security camera. I opened the app and watched. As Brenda walked up to my porch, clipboard in hand, she stared at the flower pot for a long moment, then started taking pictures from every angle. She even bent down to peer inside, as if expecting to find something illegal hidden in the dirt. I watched, barely able to contain my laughter. Then she pulled out her phone and made a call. The camera picked up her voice, clear as day. "Yes, I'm at Alex's house again. It's got some kind of container on the porch. No, it's empty, but it's unsightly. I'm writing them up." She hung up, scribbled on her clipboard, and walked away. I saved the video clip and sent it to the group chat with the caption, "Breaking news. Empty flower pots are now a threat to the community." The chat exploded with laughter. People started posting photos of their own empty pots, buckets, and even a wheelbarrow or two. The mood in the neighborhood shifted from frustration to camaraderie. For the first time, people were standing up to Brendan not with anger, but with humor. But I still had one more move to make. I wanted to see just how far Brenda would go if she thought no one was watching. So I set up a second camera, this one hidden in a birdhouse near the edge of my yard. It had a perfect view of the sidewalk, the front of my house. I wanted to catch her in the act, not just of writing violations, but of crossing the line. A few days later, my patience paid off. It was a Saturday morning, and I was enjoying a rare moment of peace with a cup of coffee on the back porch. My phone buzzed motion detected on the front camera. I tapped the app and watched as Brenda strolled up the sidewalk, glancing around, as if to make sure no one was watching. She paused at the edge of my yard, then stepped off the sidewalk and onto my grass, heading straight for the birdhouse. She didn't know it, but she was being recorded from two angles. The main camera above the garage caught her approach, while the hidden birdhouse cam captured her every move up close. She crouched down, peered into the birdhouse, and then unbelievably reached inside and fiddled with something. I couldn't tell what she was doing, but it looked suspicious. After a minute, she stood up, brushed off her hands, and walked back to the sidewalk, glancing over her shoulder as she left. I waited until she was gone, then went out to check. Inside the birdhouse, I found a small, folded piece of paper. It was a handwritten note. "Remove unauthorized surveillance equipment immediately. This is your final warning." I stared at it, equal parts amused and annoyed. The birdhouse was on my property, and there was nothing in the HOA rules about cameras or birdhouses. Brenda had crossed a line she'd trespassed, tampered with my property, and left a threatening note. I took photos of everything in the note, the birdhouse, the camera footage. Then I did something I'd never done before. I called the non-emergency police line, explained the situation, and within an hour, a patrol car pulled up in front of my house. It's Officer Ramirez, a friendly, no-nonsense woman in her 30s. Listened as I explained what had happened. I showed her the video clips and the note. She watched the footage, her eyebrows rising as Brenda's actions played out on the screen. "She just walked right onto your property and left this?" she asked, holding up the note. I nodded. "She's the HOA president. She's been harassing me for months. This is just the latest stunt." Officer Ramirez shook her head. You're well within your rights to have cameras on your own property, and she has no authority to enter your yard or tamper with your things. This is trespassing, plain and simple." She took a few notes, snapped photos of the evidence, and said she'd file a report. "She comes back or tries anything else, call us right away. And if you feel threatened, let us know. We take this kind of harassment seriously." I thanked her, feeling a wave of relief. For the first time, someone in authority was on my side. I sent an update to the neighborhood group chat, letting everyone know what had happened. Response was immediate and supportive. Several neighbors admitted they'd had similar experiences with Brenda notes left on their doors. Strange footprints in their gardens, even late-night inspections. The mood shifted from amusement to concern. People started to realize that this wasn't just about silly rules. It was about privacy, respect, and safety. That afternoon, I got a knock on the door. It was Brenda, looking more agitated than usual. She didn't bother with pleasantries. "I understand you've involved the police," she said, her voice tight. I kept my expression neutral. "That's right. You trespassed on my property and tampered with my things. I have it all on video," she bristled. "I was conducting an inspection. It's my duty as HOA President." I shook my head. "You have no right to enter my yard without permission. You definitely have no right to touch my property or leave threatening notes." She glared at me, her face red. "I'm making a mistake, Alex. The HOA can make life very difficult for you." I met her gaze, calm and steady. "I'm not breaking any rules. I'm just protecting my home. If you have a problem, take it up with the board or the police." She stared at me for a long moment, then turned and stormed off. I watched her go, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and anxiety. I knew this wasn't over. If anything, it was just beginning. That night, I reviewed the camera footage again, making sure everything was saved and backed up. Started a new folder on my computer. Brenda Evidence. I added the videos, the photos, the note, and a copy of the police report. I wanted to be ready for whatever came next. The following week, things got quiet. Too quiet. Brenda stopped her daily patrols. The violation notices stopped coming. For a moment, I wondered if she'd finally given up. But then, late one night, my phone buzzed with another motion alert. I opened the app and saw headlights sweeping across my driveway. A car pulled up, and two figures got out: Brenda and another woman I didn't recognize. They walked up to my house, talking in low voices. I watched as they circled my property, shining flashlights at the windows and the garage. They stopped at the birdhouse, pointed at it, and then moved on. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but their body language was tense. After a few minutes, they got back in the car and drove off. I saved the footage and sent it to Officer Ramirez, along with a note. "She's back, and she brought a friend." She replied within the hour, assuring me that the report was updated, and that extra patrols would be passing through the neighborhood. The next morning, I found another note on my door. This one was typed, not handwritten. "Cease all unauthorized surveillance and remove all recording devices from your property. Failure to comply will result in further action." Okay, no signature, but I knew who it was from. I took a deep breath, feeling the old frustration rising. This time, I wasn't scared. I was ready. Brenda wanted a war of attrition, but I had something better: the truth, the law, and a neighborhood that was finally waking up. I woke up the next morning with a sense of resolve. The game had changed. Brenda was no longer just a nuisance. She was a threat, and she was escalating. But I wasn't alone anymore. The neighborhood was watching. The police were aware, and I had a digital mountain of evidence. I decided it was time to take my prank to the next level, not to humiliate her, but to force her to reveal her true colors in front of everyone. I started by reaching out to a few neighbors I trusted, people who had quietly supported me in the group chat. I invited them over for coffee one Saturday morning. We sat on my porch, sipping coffee and sharing stories. Mrs. Jenkins told us about the time Brenda fined her for having unapproved daffodils. The Smiths laughed about the infamous Halloween decoration debacle. Even old Mr. Miller, who rarely left his house, came by to share his tale of a noise violation for playing jazz on his porch at 3 p.m. As we talked, an idea began to form. What if we all made our properties perfect at the same time? What if, for one weekend, Every house on the block was in absolute textbook compliance with every single HOA rule. No weeds, no unapproved flowers, no visible trash cans, no cars parked at odd angles. We'd mow, trim, sweep, and polish until the whole street looked like a real estate brochure. And then we'd invite Brenda for a surprise inspection. Oh, Steve. Neighbors loved the idea. It was harmless, it was funny, and it would put Brenda in a position where she couldn't find a single thing wrong. We picked a date and started planning. The group chat lit up with excitement. People shared tips, borrowed tools, and even helped each other with yard work. Quote, for the first time, the neighborhood felt like a real community, not by fear of the HOA, but by a shared sense of purpose. The day before the inspection, I walked up and down the street, admiring the transformation. Lawns were freshly mowed, hedges trimmed, driveways swept. Every mailbox was painted, every porch light was the right wattage, every trash can was hidden away. It was almost comical how perfect everything looked. Even the most nitpicky inspector would have to admit defeat. That evening, I sent Brenda an email, CCing the entire HOA board. Dear Brenda, several neighbors have expressed interest in a community-wide inspection to ensure we are all in compliance with HOA standards. We would appreciate your expertise in reviewing our properties this Saturday at 10 a.m. Thank you for your dedication to our neighborhood. She replied within minutes, I will be there. Expect full cooperation. Saturday morning arrived, and the street was buzzing with anticipation. Neighbors stood on their porches, coffee in hand, chatting and laughing. Some even brought out lawn chairs to watch the show. At exactly 10 a.m., Brenda appeared, clipboard in hand, wearing her usual khakis and pastel polo. She looked around. Clearly surprised by the turnout, she started at one end of the street, methodically inspecting each property. She checked mailboxes, measured grass, peered at porch lights, and scrutinized flower beds. But everywhere she looked, she found perfection. No violations, no mistakes, nothing to write up. The neighbors followed her from house to house, offering friendly greetings and watching as her frustration grew. When she reached my house, I greeted her with a smile. Morning, Brenda. Anything I can help you with? She scowled, flipping through her notes. Your property appears to be in compliance. I nodded. Glad to hear it. Let me know if you see anything I missed. She moved on, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. She was losing control, and she knew it. The neighbors watched as she finished her inspection, her clipboard still blank. When she reached the end of the street, she turned to face the crowd that had gathered. Thank you for your cooperation, she said, her voice strained. I trust you will all continue to maintain these standards. There was a ripple of laughter, polite but pointed. The message was clear. We could follow the rules when we wanted to, and we could do it together. Brenda walked away, defeated. But not yet finished. That afternoon, checked my email and found a new message from her. Alex, I'm aware of your recent activities and your attempts to undermine my authority. This is your final warning. Cease all disruptive behavior or face further consequences. I forwarded the email to Officer Ramirez, along with a note. She's threatening me again. She replied quickly, assuring me that the report was updated and that I should continue documenting everything. That night, I sat on my porch, watching the sun set over the now perfect street. The neighbors waved as they walked by, some stopping to chat, others just smiling in solidarity. For the first time since I'd moved in, I felt like I belonged. We'd stood up to the bully, not with anger or violence, but with unity and a little bit of mischief. But I knew Brenda wouldn't give up that easily. She was a woman who thrived on control, and she'd just lost it in front of the whole neighborhood. I had a feeling she'd try something desperate hand. I was ready for her. A week later, the neighborhood held its annual block party, a tradition Brenda had always tried to keep as bland and rule-bound as possible. See her though, the neighbors. Had a surprise planned? Unbeknownst to Brenda, the party theme was HOA Comedy Roast. Everyone was invited to share their funniest, most ridiculous violation stories. There was even a Brenda bingo card with squares like mailbox violation, unapproved flowers, and trash can too visible. I was asked to MC the event. As the sun set and the party lights came on, I took the mic and welcomed everyone. Tonight, we celebrate our beautiful neighborhood Dan, the woman who made us all experts in the HOA rulebook. Brenda, This one's for you." The crowd erupted in laughter and applause. One by one, neighbors came up to share their stories. Mrs. Jenkins read her unapproved daffodil violation in a dramatic voice. The Smiths reenacted their Halloween crime. Even Mr. Miller played a jazz riff on his phone and asked if anyone felt disturbed. Then came the highlight, a slideshow of the most absurd violation photos set to circus music. The empty flower pot, the marigolds, the bird feeder, the infamous, dangerously bright garden lights. Each photo got a bigger laugh than the last. Brenda, red-faced and fuming, tried to protest, but the crowd was having too much fun. Someone handed her a Brenda bingo card and a plastic crown. "You're the queen of compliance." They cheered. By the end of the night, Brenda stormed off, humiliated and exposed. The board finally had enough evidence and enough public pressure to remove her as president. The new board rewrote the rules to be fair and reasonable, and the neighborhood finally felt like home. The weeks after Brenda's downfall felt like a new era. The neighborhood was lighter, friendlier, and more relaxed. People started putting out garden gnomes, wind chimes, and even a few tasteful Halloween decorations just because they could. The group chat, once a place for venting, became a hub for block parties, tool swaps, and even a neighborhood book club. I got to know my neighbors better than I ever expected. We shared more than just stories about Brendo. We shared recipes, helped each other with projects, and even organized a community garden. The sense of unity that had started as a defense against Brenda's tyranny became something real and lasting.